On Yom Kippur 1973, almost 50 years to the day from October 7th, 2023, the Egyptian army launched a massive surprise attack across the Suez Canal into southern Israel in coordination with the Syrian invasion along the Golan Heights in Israel's north. In the south, 450 IDF soldiers tried in vain to stop 100,000 Egyptian troops, and in the north, 1,400 Syrian tanks hurled themselves against Israel's 160. Israel was caught completely off guard 50 years before October 7th, when Israel again was caught completely off guard. And at that point, when Israel had sustained those terrible losses, Golda Meir, who was then the prime minister of the state, she wanted to go and visit the soldiers. And there's an unbelievable exchange that's recorded in Yehuda Avner's The Prime Ministers, an incredible book where she's sitting, if you can see this picture of Golda Meir, sitting with all of these soldiers in Quneitra, which is up north, those who are fighting to protect Israel from the Syrians coming down. And she wrapped up her session with the soldiers, and she said, "Does anyone want to ask me a question?" And one tank crew member, who looked like he was in his mid-20s, he was caked with black basalt dust from head to toe. His only contrasting feature were the white of his eyes. He said, "I have a question." And he continued to say, "My father was killed in 48, and we won. My uncle was killed in the war of 56, and we won. My brother lost an arm in the 67 war, and we won. Last week, I lost my best friend over there." And he points to the Vale of Tears, where they were standing. And he says, "We're going to win again. But is all of this sacrifice worthwhile, Golda? What's the use of our sacrifice if we can't win the peace?" And Golda Meir looked at this young man, and she said, "I weep for your loss, just as I grieve for all of our dead. I lie awake at night thinking of them. I must tell you in all honesty, were our sacrifices for ourselves alone, then maybe you would be right. I'm not at all sure they would be worthwhile. But if our sacrifices are for the sake of the whole Jewish people, then I believe with all my heart that any price is worthwhile." If the sacrifice is for everyone, then everything is worthwhile, Golda Meir famously said. In this week's Parsha, the Jewish people are finally going to leave Egypt. But before they do so, God requires one thing of them. They have to prevent the 10th plague, the worst of the plagues, which was the slaying of the firstborn, that in order to prevent that plague from afflicting them and their own firstborn, they would have to take the god of Egypt, which was the cow, the calf, slaughter it publicly, put its blood on the doorpost over which God would pass. That's where we get Passover, and be able to save the firstborn of Israel. And the question is raised, why is it that this plague, the last of the plagues, that the Jewish people had to do something themselves to prevent this plague from afflicting them? All the other plagues just impacted the Egyptians. The beasts and the arben and the darkness. The Jews had light and the Egyptians had darkness. Nothing affected the Jews except God said, "This one will affect you. You need to do something." And the rabbis teach that's because they were about to leave. And God needed to see whether or not they would be willing to make some kind of sacrifice. Would they put their lives on the line and recognize that God was the true God and no longer Pharaoh? And they could do that by bringing the Paschal offering and taking some of its blood and putting it on their lintel. And that's the same question we have today. What are we willing to do for the whole sake of the Jewish people, like Golda Meir said? Our brothers and sisters in Israel, they give 3 years of their lives. They literally put their lives on the line. What are we doing? And I say, listen, we're not there, we can't physically fight, but we can support, and we can post, and we can defend, and we can give money, and we can keep davening and praying. And I know this is a long war, but they're the ones fighting it. They are doing everything for the sake of the entire Jewish people. What are we here in the diaspora doing for the sake of the entire Jewish people? There's a lot we can do. We can't fatigue, we can't get tired. We have to do what Golda Meir said to that young man 50-something years ago, that if it's for the sake of the entire Jewish people, then it is worthwhile for this sacrifice. Let's figure out what is our sacrifice. A year plus after this war has started, Are we fatiguing? Are we giving up? Are we stopping to pray, to daven, to send money, to go to Israel, to show our love and support? Never give up, because for the sake of the entire people, everything is worth it. Shabbat Shalom. Hey, please like and subscribe so we can get these really important videos out to a larger audience. Thank you.